Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to talk about the SEC tournament bracket that starts Wednesday, March the 9th. Blake, I think this will be the most fun SEC tournament in our memory. Storylines all over the place. What are your thoughts now that you've seen the bracket?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was having this discussion, and thanks. I know there are some people watching this that joined our huge Twitter space on Sunday night. I was pleasantly surprised by how many people were in there. I think we had like 600, almost 700 people at one point in there all together that watched the Twitter space at some point or another. And I kind of talked about it. I said, what's interesting to me about this bracket is I think it's going to be one of the top four. But you know what? When you really look at this, LSU playing really good basketball right now.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama is, to me, is the ultimate. It does not matter what we say about Alabama. It does not matter if they're not playing their best basketball right this second. At any time they could. So they can't. They have to be put in the discussion. A&M playing their best basketball of the season. South Carolina playing their best basketball of the season. I think you could order Vanderbilt's playing their best basketball of the season. I mean, there's a lot of intrigue here. And I think, again, it's going to be one of the top four, but I think it's probably – actually, let's start here. I'm going to ask you this question. How many teams – and somebody asked me this, and I had a pretty set answer. How many teams do you think can win this tournament?
I think 6.
That's what I said.
Maybe Mississippi State, but they just don't play well outside of Starkville. I don't think Carolina's got the horses.
I think Florida's the only other team I'd put in there as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, a Florida-Auburn rematch on Friday would be very intriguing, but I'm not sure Florida gets by A&M. I mean, see, that's the thing. This tournament, I've been saying it's got so much. You've got the storylines with the title, but one of the first things that catches my eye is you've got Florida A&M and a stay alive to get to the big dance game, and whichever of those teams wins at least has its season on life support, and then it gets a chance to beat Auburn the next day. And frankly, if it's Florida that wins that game and wins and beats Auburn, then I think Florida's in your field of 68. I mean, it just, in addition to the top 4 teams, which I know everybody's going to talk about, you just got so many things to look forward there. And oh, by the way, there's a couple things I've got in reserve that we've not even hit on yet.
Confidence rankings beyond the top 4 for me when I look at this bracket based on how it's set. I'd go LSU 1, again, beyond the top 4, and the teams I'm most confident in that I think could, let's just say, get to the championship. How about that? Let's use that as the caveat. LSU would be 1. Alabama would be 2.
Ooh, boy.
Man, I think it's either A&M or Florida is 3 to me. I'm just honestly, like when I say that, how about this? I think the bottom part of the bracket is way, way more manageable than the top part of the bracket.
Well, let me throw one more thing at you, too. I think Vanderbilt will beat Georgia in game 1. Vandy, Alabama was a dandy in Nashville.
Vandy, Kentucky was a dandy at Rupp.
Well, but let's not get ahead of ourselves yet, okay?
I'm just saying.
I know, but Vandy might be that team that crashes the party to get to the quarterfinals because the most Alabama thing to do would be to lose to Vanderbilt, right?
Somebody asked us in the Twitter space
we need to. We've talked about merchandise. We need a WWAD bracelet. What would Alabama do?
We need someone to draw a picture of George Costanza, and on George's glasses, the tie, like the mascot on each of the glasses, and I think that's what we need for that. Someone asked this question last night. I thought it's kind of hilarious when you think about it. Who do you think, if all the teams and all the opposing coaches are talking to their players and they hear a team that they do want to play and don't want to play, who would it be? And someone said in the Twitter space, I think it's Alabama for every single answer, because it's like,
right.
Because there are points where some people are going to be like, we absolutely want to play Alabama. And then it's going to be like, well, but which one are we getting? And I think that is the thing. And so That's why. And,
Maybe
I asked the
Alabama's
question.
Two-Face. We
I
said
don't
it was
know.
Florida, but
It's.
when we were doing our Seinfeld episode, maybe it's Alabama.
I think 6 can win it. I think it's the top 6 seeds. Beyond that, I think LSU has the best chance. And then I think it's Alabama. Then I think I'd probably go Florida. Um, but I don't know if Florida gets past A&M. I think A&M is playing so well right now. I would put Mississippi State further down than a lot of people think. I've lost all trust in Mississippi State at this point. Um, like they have, I just don't see it. Now here's the thing, and I say this right. I could absolutely see Mississippi State beating South Carolina, and then let's say maybe even. I mean, could they play well enough against Tennessee? If Mississippi State plays their potential, sure they could. But I don't have the confidence in that. I think Tennessee is. That's why I said I think Tennessee's in a good spot. Quite frankly, if you look at all this, I think Tennessee's probably in the best spot, maybe of anyone, because I think Auburn versus either Texas A&M or Florida is kind of tricky because you have two teams that are trying to play their way in. I don't think Mississippi State or South Carolina are going to be in that conversation. Now, this is why we do videos. I can't. You guys are going to be able to go back to this and play this over and over if South Carolina, Mississippi State makes a run here and one of them gets to the tournament. But like, I don't love Kentucky having to play an Alabama team. Like we said, that will play to the level of competition if they get by Vanderbilt or Georgia. So it's an interesting setup. I think this is such a fascinating. The way the bracket played out is so fascinating because I think there are so many. As good as these top 4 teams have been, there are so many potential pitfalls, in my opinion, looking at this. And I think that's what I find the most fascinating here.
You look at entertainment value in the first couple days. Scottie Pippen Jr. is a reason to turn on the TV alone. I mean,
Yeah.
Cario Oquendo in his own right, too. But you got, I think, Vandy, Alabama on day 2 could go down to the wire, just like it did when they played in the regular season. I think Florida A&M, I love that we got that matchup.
Yeah.
Because those are the two most on-the-bubble teams in this league. And I know they both got a lot. A&M's probably really got a lot of work to do. I need to do the bracketology stuff, which I've started on, but I haven't quite gotten down to A&M yet, which it won't matter to you guys because we're not going to air that till Tuesday anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, like, if you said, like, what are 2 games I'd love to see in the second round? I think Alabama-Vandy could be wildly entertaining. I think that Florida A&M, for all the reasons, could be entertaining. Whoever comes out of Ole Miss, Missouri, and LSU, I don't see that as must-watch TV. But, I mean, even State and South Carolina, as much as we've dogged on State, Blake, they've got Garrison Brooks. They've got Tulu Smith, who's played really well. He missed some time to injury. Iverson Molinar can carry you for a game. I mean, as much as we've dogged State, and do I believe it's going to happen? No. I just don't think they play well outside of their own building. But State's got the talent, man. I mean, you look at that. I think if you want to say what says as much about the SEC as anything in this tournament bracket, it's a team with State's talent is sitting there with the 10 seed. And Florida's a 9. I mean, that just tells you how good this league is. The preseason player of the year is playing on Wednesday.
I think I have reached a point with Mississippi State where I agreed with all that going into the season. I think when you look much deeper at where they are and what they've accomplished, I don't think it's that impressive. But again, the potential's there, right? The potential's there, and that's the thing we're talking about. Is that I think is where the frustration set in for Mississippi State fans is knowing that because really, I'm looking at this. They have not beaten an NCAA tournament team since January the 15th. They've beaten Ole Miss, South Carolina, Missouri twice, and Vanderbilt. Meanwhile, they've lost to Florida, lost to Kentucky, lost to Tech, lost to Arkansas, lost to Tennessee, lost to LSU, lost to Alabama, lost to Auburn.
Yeah, but okay, let me make and it's a very loose parallel, although there's one common denominator, and you'll spot it quickly. Do you remember UCLA's resume last year heading into the NCAA tournament?
Wasn't great, was it?
UCLA got what the 12 play-in game. had beaten nobody of consequence. Now, I bet the computers had UCLA higher than it has State, but I mean, State is top 50 in the predictive computers last I checked. I think it's top 40 in, goodness, State was 25th the other day in BPI, which I think that's wildly misplaced, but still the computers don't love, but they like that team. We've talked about the talent. I mean, State's got depth. I feel like I've turned this into a Mississippi State infomercial. I don't mean to do it, but
sponsored by Corn Nuts.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and here's the thing. There was a point where I'm like, am I being fair to Mississippi State? Now I think I'm absolutely being fair to Mississippi State because it's just the wins aren't there, and I think that's what I look at this time of year. The wins. Where are the wins? And I don't see a lot of those that have been impressive enough. Despite
I will not argue that. Just for the record,
yeah.
I'm not. And there's results, and then there's how talented are you if it comes together, and that's the only point I'm making.
That's why I would rank them lower in terms of my confidence in them. Now, again, that's not in terms of can they do this. It's my confidence in where these teams are at. Of the teams that we know that are going to play in the second round right now, of those 6 teams, I would put them at the bottom. I'd put LSU, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida A&M all ahead of Mississippi State. And look, that's why they're the 10th seed, right? So yeah, I just think that I just don't see it. But, the other thing I look at here, I mean, it's just like, I keep looking at this and I'm like, that LSU Arkansas game,
man.
if that's what we get, that is the one that I think that really could be interesting because, I mean, let's remember, Arkansas beat them twice this season. And that was one of the, that was sort of the initial jumping off point, I think, for Arkansas. I mean, beyond the 44-point, thrashing of Missouri. But that was really going on the road and getting that win. I think that took Arkansas's confidence to a new level at that point. And as we've said, they've just been very good since then. And then that last game they played, LSU had every opportunity to win that game and just could not find a way to do it. At the end, Arkansas, makes the plays. They're down 6 with 6 minutes left, and they wind up rallying to win the game. And so I think that's probably for me the most. Well, I'd still say that. I think that's the most anticipated quarterfinal matchup we could see. Kentucky, Alabama would probably be second. And that's not a slight on potential Auburn or Florida and A&M because I think Auburn is in a decent enough spot here. But we always say the teams that get the double bye, if you get one of those teams that really finds a lot of confidence in that second round, or let's say you get a Vanderbilt who wins on, Wednesday, upsets Alabama on Thursday, and they go into that quarterfinal. It's hard to, we've seen that, right? Like it wasn't that long ago, Auburn goes 4 for 4 and wins the SEC tournament. Now that's a different team, but I just think that the LSU Arkansas is the one I have circled the most, if that's what we get. But keep in mind too, Ole Miss has beaten LSU this year. So if that winds up being the matchup, that's an interesting one to think about. So man, there's so many fascinating matchups across the board here.
I can't get you to bite on Vandy, Alabama. Vanderbilt pulling an upset, can I?
Oh, you absolutely could.
Okay.
Again, I think 100% because that was something else I think we talked about in the Twitter space last night was Vanderbilt is considered lesser competition to Alabama than Kentucky. So could Alabama lose that game? It was a good game the last game. Remember, we saw it. Like they played really well. That was a good game between those two in Nashville. So 100% I could see Vanderbilt beating Alabama. Will it happen? I probably wouldn't bet on it, but could it happen? Of course it could, because Alabama is, there's no reason for me to, I guess, to keep repeating it, but Alabama's just the team that they are. Like I've seen them for 31 games now, and I've seen the same theme throughout. There's just the consistency, the level of the competition, and yes, so if you're picking a double-digit seed, there's another one. If you're picking a double-digit seed you think could make it the furthest, I mean, is that Mississippi State? For some people, maybe if
I
they
think
think
it
that.
might be Vandy because I keep trying to find a path for Mississippi State, and I couldn't remember, but we talked about how good State is at home. Well, Tennessee beat them in Starkville by
Yeah,
9 points the only time they played.
yeah,
So I
that wasn't
know
long
that
ago either.
rematches sometimes you get different results, but that makes it harder for me
Yeah,
to go there.
yeah. So I think Vandy. If you're, let's cut it off at the Wednesday night games. Vandy's the pick. I mean, I think that they have the best choice or the best path probably. But again, you're talking about beating Kentucky. Their path, they have the best path to the quarterfinals. I don't think they have the best path to the semifinals because beating Kentucky, I think, will be a challenge. But hey, when you have a star player like Scottie Pippen, anything is possible. Um, so yeah, I think those are some of the best matchups. I mean, beyond that, I think it's just let's go there because we're doing this as an overview. Okay, we're gonna make our predictions game by game as the games happen, as the bracket fills out throughout the week. But as of right now, what how do you look at this? Like, what is it as simple as saying it's going to be the top four in the semifinals?
No, because it hasn't been that simple all year. I mean,
Right.
but if you make me pick,
I think I'd have to pick the top four. LSU Arkansas is an
Ella,
interesting one, and not because
you took the words
you
out of
know,
my mouth.
just because I think one there's two schools of thought on this, right? You either are in the opinion of it's hard to beat a team three times in a season, or well, there's a reason you beat them twice, and you just happen to have that team's number. And so, but I mean, we're not saying anything that's surprising. It would be the 4 or 5 matchup. I mean, so there's not, you know what I mean? Like, even though there was a little bit that separated those teams in the regular season, they're still the fourth and fifth place team. So I think that's the matchup maybe that could throw things a little off course. I would have a hard time not putting those four in the semifinals right now. And again, that's not we do this every year. It seems like it just makes sense to put the teams that have had the best seasons, and especially when these top four had the seasons they've had. I just think it probably as of right now, and trust me, the fence setter. The fence setter is going to change his mind a lot over the next several days. But I think I'd have a hard time not going that route right now based on what I've seen from those four. But,
Okay, let me ask you a question. This is where we're going to make a lot of friends with this one.
oh boy.
What's the best case scenario for the league? In other
Well,
words, in terms of overall basketball welfare, and
all right.
this is what I hate because we're
Okay.
about to throw Auburn on the sacrificial pile. But I mean, I think if you're the league, Auburn's of course getting in the tournament. Auburn losing in the quarters would probably drop Auburn to a 2. Now maybe you balance that out by having Kentucky run the table and win the whole thing, and maybe earn the 1. But for the league, if you're going to get that 7th team in the tournament, you kind of got to have either Florida or A&M upsetting Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you would say. Again, if we're saying best case for the league is getting the maximum amount of teams in the tournament, then that's the one you point to. Because I think if Florida wins 2, they're in. If A&M wins 2, I don't know yet.
We'll talk
And
about
maybe
that
I'm wrong on
tomorrow.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if winning 2 is going to be enough for A&M. So I think Florida winning 2, lost in the semifinals to either Arkansas or LSU. I think Florida's in.
State at this point, I think, would have to beat South Carolina, Tennessee, and then probably pick off whoever's left, which the seeding would say Kentucky.
And I just don't know if I see that. So
no, I don't see it.
Hey, but remember the stat, right? What was it, Philip, in our Twitter space on Saturday? The last time the tournament was in Tampa. Did Mississippi State win that tournament?
I believe that's what he told us.
Maybe there's some mojo there that could help them. I'm going to look this up real quick because I want to make sure I'm right. But
Jarvis Fernando ain't walking through that door.
Yeah, well, that's true. Let's see. Tampa, the last time it was there. Yep. 2009. Tennessee or Mississippi State defeated Tennessee in the championship. Jarvis Fernando was the MVP, at the St. Pete Times Forum in Tampa, Florida. So, yeah. By the way, that's a year after the tornado tournament in
That was
Atlanta.
so long
So,
ago they named arenas after newspapers.
yeah, right. It's much different now. Yeah, it's something. So, yeah, I think that's it. Again, if you're looking for if you're the league and you're looking for the best case scenario for getting the maximum number of teams, it would be Florida beating A&M and Auburn. I think that's the easiest path to accomplishing that goal if that's your goal. Because really everything else, I think it's just South Carolina, Mississippi State, like we said. I think that's a long shot. So
I think you may have 4 teams get seeds, top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament no matter what happens. I mean, Auburn's there, Kentucky's there, Tennessee's there. Yeah. The question would be Arkansas. If Arkansas loses to LSU, I could see Arkansas dropping a seed line maybe from 4 to 5. If everybody's got them at 4 right now, I'm making an assumption there. But
yeah, I think that's a good point. And someone brought up in the comments not long ago, and I do want to back up their point. We bring up bracket matrix, but it was brought up in the comments. Yes, you have to keep in mind there are some brackets that are used in bracket matrix that are much more reputable than others. So that combined average seeding is just sometimes it just depends, right? Like what do you value and all that. As of right now, if we go by what we see, Auburn is settled into that final number 1 seed. Kentucky, and this is more, we're going to have this discussion more in our bracketology, so I'm going to save some of this, but Kentucky's at a 2, Tennessee's at a 3, Arkansas's at a 4, Alabama and LSU are both at 6s, which good luck to those teams that are playing Alabama and LSU if they're 6 seeds. I'm just saying, I would not love that for the 11s or the 3s in those scenarios. But so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting with how this bracket is set up. Do you agree with me? The top part's tougher than the bottom part?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Because
I just think it's matchups.
Because you got Florida A&M is going to be sitting there for Auburn in game 2. You've got that LSU Arkansas game, which will just be so good. Yeah, there's no doubt. Which makes it more frustrating if you're Mississippi State and you don't make a run. But why'd I keep coming back to State? I don't know. But
maybe you're onto something. Maybe you're going with history and tradition here and thinking about, hey.
Well, I keep trying to get teams in the dance, right? I mean, we talk about what do you root for? What I root for? I root for what's good for us. 8 teams in the big dance would be really good for us. So,
yeah, well, that's true, I guess.
We're
all about pushing our own agenda here.
Biggest wild card in this tournament. I've got an answer, and you're going to look at me like I'm crazy, but then I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Oh, you're waiting for me to speak.
I'm waiting for your
Kentucky, and it's because of health.
Yeah.
I think if I had one, here's another thing on the list, like your wish list for the league. Just get Kentucky out of this thing healthy. I mean, yeah, if Kentucky wins, it might can reach up and snatch a 1, but I don't know that Kentucky's a whole lot less dangerous sitting down there, at 2 instead of a 1. But what you don't want is to come out of this tournament and Washington aggravates something, or Wheeler aggravates something, or Toppin has hurt his ankle a couple times, I think. I mean, I do worry for them just based on the season so far and the way it's gone, that something bad could happen there. Maybe it's just randomness, but
I think, again, because we've seen it with them this season, but I think you can also be like, well, that could happen with anyone. And it's just, that's why, like, the value, maybe this is the bigger question. What is the value of this conference tournament to these top 4 seeds? How significantly does it change? I mean, certainly Auburn locks up a number 1 if they win the SEC tournament. Like, there's no debate. If Kentucky wins the SEC tournament, are they a number 1, or are they still sitting behind as a number 2 seed? I still think they're probably a 2.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think if they can fall out of 2. I mean, maybe if Kentucky loses in the quarters, which is its first game, but if it's to Alabama, that doesn't hurt your computer
I
numbers.
don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, if Kentucky beats, okay, if Auburn, say Auburn loses the first game, and then Kentucky runs the table, then maybe Kentucky's got the argument. But let's say it's Kentucky and Auburn in the title game.
Then
You
Auburn's
talked
a 1,
about
Kentucky's
you talk
a 2.
about timing. Yeah, like is that not decided before they even tip it off?
Right. Yeah. Here, let's play it this way, and we'll do this quickly. Best case, worst case. Auburn, best case, you win the SEC tournament. You're a 1 seed, locked in. Worst case, you lose in the quarterfinals.
You're a 2.
You drop to a 2. All right. So not much. There's not a ton there. That there's no huge worst case scenario. Tennessee, this is an interesting one. Tennessee, you win the SEC tournament. I think you're locked in. I don't know. I'm going to change that. I think you're very close to a 2 seed.
Oh,
yeah. I think maybe there's. But see, again, we have to keep in mind it's also.
Oh, hey Blake, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. I think Tennessee may already be there as a 2.
See, but
like
okay.
if the season ended today.
Okay. Well, see, then there you go. All right. So let's use that then. Let's say that Tennessee wins the SEC tournament. They're a 2 seed. There's your best case. Worst case, Tennessee loses to South Carolina or Mississippi State. They're probably a 3.
Yeah.
I don't think they drop to a 4.
But
again,
South Carolina would not be the team you want to lose to just because of computer numbers. State wouldn't hurt you as much.
Well, if Tennessee's a 4, once again, good luck to that bracket because I wouldn't love that if I'm teams that are dealing with them as a 4.
I'm thinking through this. Tennessee does not have a loss below quad 1. And I think State would be a quad 1 loss on a neutral floor because it's 1-50.
Okay.
Because State is right now. Well, no, I'm sorry. State's not in the top 50, but South Carolina is definitely not going to be there. So,
all right, we'll say worst case, Tennessee drops to a high 4, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think
they'll drop off 3. But yeah, I mean,
again,
it depends on what happens elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. There you go. That's the caveat. All right, Kentucky wins the SEC tournament. As we said, perhaps maybe there's a pathway to a 1. I think 2 is probably where they're slotted. If they lose to Alabama in the quarterfinals, still think they're a 2. I don't think they're dropping.
Yeah, okay.
Just
It would take a run by Tennessee. Wisconsin's an interesting one to watch because Wisconsin was kind of right there with Kentucky, maybe, depending on how you look at it. And then Wisconsin got beaten up by Nebraska at home Sunday, which Nebraska's suddenly picking off everybody in sight. And they've got like 9 wins.
So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, okay, Purdue, Villanova, Duke win their league tournaments. Maybe all those teams could pass Kentucky if Kentucky takes an early exit, but it's no worse than a 3.
All right, Arkansas. Arkansas wins the SEC tournament. Is the highest a 3?
Yeah, I think so. The problem with Arkansas was the non-conference schedule.
Right. So the highest, Arkansas wins, they're a 3. If Arkansas loses in the quarters to LSU, see, that's what's interesting about Arkansas is if they lose to LSU, I don't think that's not a huge impact.
You might be a 5, but the computers are going to treat it as if it never happened.
So
because LSU's in that 15-16 range. Yeah.
So to me, it's like Arkansas also does not have a lot of variety there. Like you can either jump to a 3 if you win the tournament, probably, maybe if you get the championship. I mean, who knows? We'll see. But I don't think you're certainly not falling below a 5. There's no chance that happens. Mm-hmm. So, and again, my guess is it's probably going to be a 3 or 4 versus a 5, but depends on how it plays out. So yeah, that's why I think, especially given what these 4 accomplished, this tournament is important, but like it's not, you're not really having a ton of movement either way because of these 4 teams put together such good resumes to this point. You obviously want to win every game you play. Obviously, every team's going to be rooting for winning the tournament, but even if you were to have an early exit, it's not going to impact these 4 teams all that much.
It's a fun event to watch. It's kind of like the SEC
Right.
baseball tournament, although this is more relevant because there's, in the baseball tournament, teams just don't want to wear out arms or get someone hurt. You saw Mississippi State last year show up and just kind of pack it in and then won the Natty. No, basketball teams are not going to approach it like that. And again, Kentucky's the one that never does because Kentucky usually goes into this thing without, the same situation, not a lot on the line. Kentucky's going to be a 1, 2, maybe a 3 seed most years, and then winning the thing doesn't really change a lot. But they like to win it. Their fans like to win it, and more often than not, they seem to win it. So
Yeah.
it's more for fun and entertainment and to create a job for me and you, maybe, than it is anything that's going to be of earth-shattering significance, unless, again, Florida, A&M, State, somebody makes a run here and plays their way in.
Yeah, we'll go over the scenarios for the other teams when we do the bracketology, maybe what it would mean to win the SEC tournament. But we can finish up with some stats because certainly, as we said, we're going to have a lot more coverage of this tournament. And so we're just kind of general overview, random thoughts on the bracket itself. But I'm going to give you some stats to wrap up with here. A lot of interesting ones here, Chris. I've already brought up one in our awards, but I went on a stats run yesterday and just a lot of interesting things. I know, but I decided to do it yesterday. So, all right. This is one, and Alabama fans that are listening to this know exactly where I'm going with this thing. If Alabama and Kentucky were to play in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament in Tampa, Florida, it would be the 5th time in the past 6 tournaments that Alabama has played Kentucky, and they are 0-4 in those games. By the way, could have been 6 in a row had Mississippi State not beat Kentucky last year by a single point in the second round, because then they would have went on. If Kentucky would have won, they would have played champion Alabama in the quarterfinals. So
not good, Bob.
Alabama has been wanting to stay away from Kentucky. Not happening again this year. Right back to the Cats for the Crimson Tide. All right. Neutral site records for the top 10 teams in the SEC this season. Now, remember, we always say some games are much more neutral than others. Alabama playing in Seattle, technically neutral, but not exactly neutral. Some of the other games in here, again, you can point to. And remember, opponent strength matters, so a lot more context just in terms of what this stat is. You have to look back at it. But undoubtedly, Alabama's win against Gonzaga is the best neutral win of the season. Auburn 3-1, Tennessee 1-2, Kentucky 1-1, Arkansas 2-2, LSU 3-0, Alabama 3-2, South Carolina 2-1, A&M 2-2, Florida 3-1, Mississippi State 2-2. What does that mean? Not a whole lot, just a stat. But I think it's interesting to note, right? I mean, because again, opponent strength matters. Keep that in mind. Like, you have to really dig deep into who they played and those kind of things. But if you're looking for it, because all we've talked about, 67-1 at home for these top 4 teams, if we start looking how they play on the road, those are just the records. They are simple facts. They are not an opinion. Those are the records for neutral court games this season. Now, SEC tournament records for every team in the field in the past 4 tournaments. So if we combine them all together, what is the record? Chris, do you want to take a wild guess on who has the most SEC tournament wins in the past 4 tournaments?
Auburn?
Alabama.
Oh, right.
Alabama is 8-3. Now remember, they won the tournament last year, so that helps. But they are 8-3 in the tournament in the past 4. Now, why only 4? Well, we didn't have a tournament 2 years ago. And I thought going back to 2016, there have been coaching changes, that kind of stuff. So I was like, all right, let's just do 4. Do you want to know who has the second highest number of wins in the tournament?
Auburn.
Kentucky. Kentucky is 7-2, and I'm about to get to Auburn in a second, and you're going to think, oh, that's right. Auburn is 4-2. They won all 4 of those games.
All in one tournament.
And they didn't play last year. Remember, they're not in the tournament last year, so they have less games. So yes, that's the interesting one with Auburn. But you will take a 4-2 record if it means you've won the tournament. So therefore, Auburn has been a champion. Alabama's been a champion. Kentucky's been a champion in that range. So Tennessee 5-4, Arkansas 5-4, LSU 2-4, and remember LSU was the champion in one of those and had a pretty high seed. South Carolina 1-4, A&M 1-4, Florida 3-4, Mississippi State 4-4. Mississippi State has gone 1-1 in every tournament in the past 4 tournaments. Vanderbilt 3-4, Missouri 3-4, Ole Miss 2-4, Georgia 3-4. So take that for what it's worth, but those are some random stats you can chew on. If you're looking and saying, "Oh, I've got Texas A&M in the championship," well, they are 1-4 in the past 4 tournaments. Same with South Carolina. Or if you think Alabama, they're going to play Kentucky again. It's inevitable. That will maybe line it up that way, looking at that they actually have the 2 best records. Alabama 8-3, Kentucky 7-2 in the past 4. So,
final thoughts?
That's a deep breath you heard, because the fun has begun. It's going to be a wild week. It's going to be a lot of fun. And here's what we got on tap. If you haven't watched our awards video yet, check that out. We've got tomorrow coming up, the Bracketology, the pre-tournament edition, brought to you by Zero Bars. And we have got the SEC East versus West All-Star teams. We're going to put those together, brought to you by Ranch Corn Nuts. And that's going to happen tomorrow as well. So, going to be great. Going to be a fantastic event. Maybe some celebrities are going to be there for this All-Star draft, but we're gonna do that as well. So there you go.
What would the uniforms look like? They'd be like the old school NBA with the red and the blue jerseys with the stars all up and down them. And
no, man, we're gonna have product placement everywhere. It's gonna be jerseys with nothing but product placements. We're gonna have
ads
just a
everywhere.
Giant, just ads all over these jerseys. We're bringing in money here. So that's what we got to do. We got to embrace the new era. Put ads on everything. The whole floor is just going to be ads and promo codes and just all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fantastic. So,
Iverson Molinar, sponsored by Corn Nuts.
Yeah, every player is going to be sponsored by something. So,
that could be a video in itself.
Oh my goodness. That has started my brains going. We better stop this video, because I'm gonna lead us down a rabbit hole of player sponsors if I don't stop. So,
well, we do have kind of an announcement about our YouTube channel too. I know we discussed telling the listening audience about that at some point. I guess now's as good a time as ever, or
for the live streams, or the
that and the fact we hit 1,000 subs.
We did hit 1,000. And so yes, that is a big achievement, and I mean, it's pretty awesome, isn't it? So, it's like we said, we could not have imagined that probably a month ago, but really in the past month, we've gotten over half of our subscribers have come just in the past month alone. So think about that. That's pretty wild, but yeah, you guys are great, and the interaction has picked up, and man, we have just it's fun right now. And so throughout the tournament, we're gonna have some creative ideas with the live streams and all this other stuff. And I said the Twitter Spaces, those are really fun. So be sure to follow us on Twitter. You've got our right there on the screen. You've got our individual Twitter handles. If you want to follow our site one too, at 14 Southeastern. Follow that on Twitter. Make sure you follow, because we're going to do some of those Twitter Spaces kind of in between our videos, and it'll be kind of interesting this week, right? Because we got to structure things. We still got to figure that out, because just how the games fall, and there's a lot to cover. So, but yes, 1,000 subscribers. We're over that mark. Heck, we're almost to 1,100, I think, at this point. But crazy, man. Just a lot of good people out there.
Yeah, and if you want to sponsor our shows too, reach out to one of us on Twitter. Or our site account at 14 Southeastern.
Is that Oreo? Is he
Oreo's
a proud sponsor?
made an appearance.
Purina is going to be the new sponsor, and we didn't want to say it, but Oreo right on cue there.
Right.
I'm just kidding. Sorry, any Purina sponsors out there, we're not. Hershey's perhaps, because of the Oreo bar that I've been pushing. We'll see. I don't know. Is that a Hershey's product? I could be wrong. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oreos are Nabisco.
Are you sure about that?
I
think you're right. Anyways, well, we got dueling sponsorships there, one way or the other, and yeah. So we appreciate everyone. We say it all the time, but it is. We appreciate everyone, and we hope this will be our biggest week ever. And then we got the tournament, so a lot more to come.
Well, do be sure and watch for the live streams. That's going to be a new thing we've done. We'll try to let you guys know in advance. Again, follow those Twitter accounts and the shows too, because that'll be a good way to let you know when those are coming. That's a new thing. I know people kind of expect us to come out sometime in the morning, which we usually do these around 9 a.m. Central. Takes a little time to upload, but there'll be a little different flow. Yeah, we've got it outlined in our head, but we'll see how it plays out. But we want you to be there, and we love the interaction. Goodness, at some point we may take phone calls. We got all kinds of things we'd like to do.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff lined up. So, yeah, there's a lot to come. So be sure you subscribe.
All right. Stock up on your corn nuts and your zero bars. Hey, my cold and allergies are kind of going away.
We sleep in May.
We sleep in May. That said, it's getting cold again. That'll just bring it all back. But
yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Tuesday.